TTRPGs, Pathfinder, Daggerheart, Ars Magica, Dungeons and Dragons, Star Wars, Star Trek, the Discworld, something homebrewed, you pick the setting, but regardless of your pick, it is pretty hard to come up with weird and mythical creatures. You could just use the rulebooks and what they give you, but sometimes that's not enough. You sometimes have to come up with some weird creatures of your own, or maybe you need inspiration for a plot twist, something so outrageous that you enthrall your audience and make them remember your story for a long time. So why not get a little help and make it epic at the same time? For this, I recommend you take inspiration from history and real-world mythology. I promise you will never run out of ideas. And I am here to help you with that, but I can't do it alone. So once again, let's take inspiration from the Tragicomic Titans, the creators of the hit show Lightning Bolts and Lawsuits, the members of the Divine Disaster Club themselves, the ancient Greeks. Now grab a tasty drink, settle in and hold on to your socks and let me tell you a story that will surely inspire you. Hello all you wonderfully funky people, Funky Monkey here, welcome to today's episode. Today's story will help you if you want to create a weird quest or perhaps a world-changing event, a conundrum of epic proportions, or just a minor deity that could help you in your story. So today I will tell you about the Minotaur. I will give you the common TTRPG description of the Minotaur and then go for the good stuff, the original story, as I think it could be an awesome source of inspiration. Oh, before we start, just as a disclaimer, there are some weird elements to the story, some just freaky, others a little bit gruesome, but nothing over the top, I promise you, so don't worry. With that, let's see what the 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons Monster Manual has to say, shall we? First off, they are said to have been born into the mortal realms through demonic rituals and are associated with the demon lord Baphomet. They are savage warriors that feast on the flesh of the conquered and are terrifying apparitions on the battlefield with their blood-stained fur and the stench of death upon them. They are ambush hunters dwelling in labyrinthine caves, dungeons or ruins where they learn to navigate with ease, allowing them to chase down their prey with little to no issue. The scent of blood sends them into a blood-fueled frenzy, making them even more deadly in battle. Besides laying in ambush, they care little for strategy or organized battles. And this plays into the bloodlust part, as once they scent blood, they care little about anything else other than attacking everything around them. They also reject hierarchy and authority, and this is a good thing actually, because if they were to organize in battle, they would be even more devastating. They are created through mystery cults that lure followers with promises of primal freedom and power. These cults involve labyrinthine rituals, animal sacrifices, and eventually end with humanoid sacrifices. The cult's rituals create nightmarish slaughterhouses filled with death and savagery. Baphomet's power turns cultists into Minotaurs, stripping them of their former humanity. As the Horned King, Baphomet's domain in the Abyss is a massive, endless labyrinth. Though originally created by Baphomet, Minotaurs can now reproduce, spreading their savage lineage with ease. On the other hand, Pathfinder takes a different approach, making them out to be proud artisans and quite social creatures. So, let's see what Pathfinder has to say. Minotaurs are large, bovine-headed humanoids with a natural talent for puzzles, mazes and craftsmanship, despite being perceived as brutish. Multiple legends exist about their origin, including the cursed stonemasons who misrepresented a divine vision and the people punished with Minotaur offspring after rejecting a supernatural gift. Minotaurs have been involved in major battles, such as an attempted siege by a warlord who sought divinity but was ultimately defeated. Different Minotaur groups have distinct traits, including cold-resistant shaggy Minotaurs, powerful horned Minotaurs, and ghost bulls with supernatural connection to the afterlife. Minotaurs have exceptional balance, allowing them to move quickly despite their size, and some possess magical abilities related to stone, while ghost bulls have divinatory powers. Most Minotaurs live in underground communal enclaves, valuing craftsmanship and preferring maze-like dwellings. They cohabit with like-minded species such as dwarves and orcs. Minotaurs are skilled builders, constructing elaborate stone structures filled with twisting hallways, murals, and gathering spaces that blend function with artistic expression. Minotaurs primarily consume plants, but hunt dangerous game in monthly ritual feasts honoring their best hunters. Minotaurs are direct and literal, using physical expression and body language in communication. Their horns are sources of pride and often are decorated. Lone, exiled Minotaurs, on the other hand, living in the ruins, contribute to the myth of them being monstrous killers, leading to widespread fear and misunderstanding. Minotaurs often reject deities, viewing gods as uncaring. Instead, they embrace logic, self-improvement, and solving life's mysteries, though some worship gods of control and knowledge. So as you can see, we have contradictory descriptions of the same creature, so you could go in any direction you want. But before you choose one way or another, or simply create your own path, let's check in with the ancient Greeks real quick and see what they have to say about Minotaurs. The word Minotaur comes from the ancient Greek Minotauros, a compound word composed of the name of Minos and Tauros, meaning bull. In essence, it means the bull of Minos. On the other hand, the Minotaur was also known as Astarion or Asterius, meaning star. In ancient times, the Minotaur was a single individual. The mythical creature and the word Minotaur used to refer to a whole species is a very recent evolution, emerging in the 20th century alongside the fantasy genre. The legends have it that after ascending to the throne of Crete, King Minos competed with his brother for domination. Minos prayed to Poseidon to send him a snow-white bull as a sign the god favored him. Poseidon sent the bull, and Minos was to sacrifice the bull back to Poseidon as a sign of devotion. But being a magnificent beast, King Minos did not have the heart to sacrifice the bull and instead kept it, trying to offer a substitute sacrifice, but as you might imagine, the god was not happy with this. So Poseidon asked Aphrodite to help him out. At Poseidon's request, Aphrodite made it that Pasiphae, Minos' wife, fell in love with the bull. If this isn't typical of the ancient Greek soap operas, I don't know what is. Pasiphae was a daughter of Helios, the god of the sun, and the Oceanid nymph Perse, and was known as a goddess of witchcraft and sorcery herself, and she bore many famous children, well, famous for Greek myths. To make it 100 times weirder, Pasiphae asked the master crafter Daedalus to craft a hollow wooden cow. She climbed into it and allowed the bull to mate with her. I mean, this is just freaky, but anyway. So the queen fell pregnant, because that's how the ancient Greeks roll, and bore Astarion, the Minotaur. Could you imagine the face of King Minos when he saw his youngest son? Could you just imagine it? Anyway, Pasiphae nurtured the kid as long as she could, but he grew fast and became ferocious. Because of his origin, according to legend, he had no natural food source, so eventually he was fed human flesh. In desperation, King Minos consulted the oracle of Delphi, and upon his return to Crete, following the oracle's advice, the king had Daedalus construct the labyrinth to hold Minotaur. The labyrinth was constructed close to the royal palace in Knossos. In alternate versions, Aphrodite cursed Pasiphae because she neglected to worship the goddess for years, and in yet another, Aphrodite cursed the queen and her sisters with unnatural desires because Helios, the sun god, Pasiphae's father, revealed to Hephaistos, the smith god and Aphrodite's husband, the affair she was having with Ares, the god of war, and if I'm not mistaken, one of her brothers. And for this, the goddess wanted to take revenge and she cursed Pasiphae. But the most typical legend, if you ask me, is the one that mentions that it was not Poseidon's bull that impregnated Pasiphae, but it was actually Zeus disguised as a bull who did. The bottom line is that Pasiphae had a thing for bulls for one reason or another, and it was either a godly bull or a god disguised as a bull with whom she did the deed. There is an ancient play written by Euripides that survived in a few fragments, and luckily enough, Pasiphae's argument with Minos survived, and in it she accused him as being responsible for everything that happened, invoking the fact that she is under the curse of a god because of his actions, which is actually true. It's insane. Now that we know how Minotaur came to be, let's talk about what else made him famous and not just another run-of-the-mill weird half-human, half-animal creature. There are several versions to the start of the story, but all talk about the death of Androgenus, the prince of Crete, son of Minos and brother of Minotaur. Depending on the source and time period, he was either killed by Athenians because he won all the prizes during the Panathenaic Games, a sort of Olympiad held every 4 years in Athens, and in another version it is mentioned that he was actually killed by the Cretan bull, his mother's former bull lover. Wow, that's a phrase. So he was killed by the bull after being sent by King Aegeus of Athens to slay the creature. But regardless of the myth you are going with, the result is always the same. Androgenus dies and Minos starts a war, a revenge war against Athens, a war that Minoans actually win. As a result, the Athenians had to pay tribute every year, or according to other sources every 7 years, or according to other sources every 9 years. The tribute was in the form of 14 youths. 7 males and 7 females, selected by either drawing lots or they were the best of the best, the most beautiful and the most athletic. These youths were sent to Crete, where they would be sent to the labyrinth and fed to the Minotaur. By the end of the third such tribute, Prince Theseus of Athens had had enough and volunteered as tribute to slay the beast. Nice parallel with Katniss from the Hunger Games. Anyway, sources say that Theseus declared that he would rather die than end up ruling a city that paid tribute in human lives. Theseus took the place of one of the youths and boarded a ship with black sails. He promised his father, Aegeus, that he would return, and he would announce his successful return by sailing a ship with white sails into the harbor. Upon boarding the ship, Theseus, as all other tributes, was stripped of all weapons and bound. Upon arrival in Crete, Ariadne, Minos' daughter and Minotaur's sister, saw Theseus and immediately fell in love with the young prince. She consulted with Daedalus and asked the designer of the labyrinth himself for help, as she wanted Theseus to survive. Daedalus advised her to give him a ball of thread so that he could use it to find his way back out of the labyrinth. The night when Theseus was taken to the labyrinth, Ariadne escorted him and slipped him the ball of thread and the sword when the guards weren't looking. He promised her that if he were to survive, he would take her with him to Athens. He was shoved into the labyrinth and the heavy door was shut behind him. He immediately tied one end of the thread to the doorstop and unsheathed his sword. Daedalus instructed Ariadne to tell Theseus to always go down as straight as possible. Never turn right or left, but always choose the path that led downwards. Following these instructions, Theseus crept his way to the heart of the labyrinth, and there he found the Minotaur sleeping. The creature sniffed his opponent and awoke, charging at him. An epic battle ensued, and eventually Theseus overpowered Minotaur and stabbed him in the throat, killing him. He took the creature's head and using the string he tied to the door, he found his way out. Once at the door, he managed to open it and found the remaining Athenian youths that were waiting to be sent to the labyrinth. He also kept his promise and found Ariadne, taking her with him along her younger sister Phaedra and making their escape. The escapees, led by Theseus, made their way back to their ship and escaped Crete. En route to Athens, they had to stop on the Isle of Naxos in search of water and fell asleep on the beach, as all of them were exhausted from the latest events, thus taking a long rest. The next morning, as they boarded the ship, Theseus abandons Ariadne on the isle and orders the crew set sail. If you are worried about Ariadne, don't. She's found by the god Dionysos, who marries her. Anyway, Theseus and his crew also stop on the Isle of Delos, where they rested a while. On the isle, he and the surviving Athenians danced a marvelous dance that, according to Plutarch, was still performed to his day by the inhabitants of the isle centuries after the event with Minotaur. The next day, Theseus forgot to change the sails of his ship and he entered the harbor of Athens with black sails. Aegeus, recognizing the ship and thinking that his son had fallen to the Minotaur, threw himself off a cliff in the sea that was later named after him, the Aegean. For centuries, after Theseus' return to Athens, his ship was kept in the harbor as a memorial. As time passed and the wood decayed, the planks and beams were replaced with sturdier, harder essences, and thus it was preserved. This ship also gave birth to the classic paradox, also known as the Ship of Theseus paradox. I'm sure you know it, but you don't know it under this name. So if the rotted wood was replaced over and over again, it is unclear how much of the original wood remained, if any, and at one point, was it still original, given the fact that as time passed, people replaced planks that were already replaced at one point? So the question is it still the same ship? Or is it a new ship? Anyway, Phaedra became Theseus' wife and bore him 2 sons. But that's another story for another time. Theseus' adventures did not stop after the Minotaur event, but again, that's another story for another time. Now, when it comes to alternate appearances, as you might expect, the Minotaur was at times represented as a half-man, half-bull, but with the parts reversed. He had the head or the torso of a man and the lower half of a bull, making him a centaur of sort. Or in some weirder representations, he was depicted as a bull with a human head. But these representations usually circulated during the Middle Ages. Now, how can you use this in your story? To be honest, I would just go with a combination of the 2 representations from Pathfinder and Dungeons and Dragons. I would make a whole species of Minotaurs that are enslaved by their main god, Baphomet, and have the protagonist of the story fight Baphomet in his labyrinthine dungeons, perhaps even defeating the Demon Lord, and ending the story with a liberation of the Minotaurs, who find that they are master crafters, highly intelligent, but very quick to anger. Or the Minotaur is actually being held hostage in the labyrinth and thus his entire people are enslaved as well. The Minotaurs are being used as mindless soldiers by some evil wizard cabal, and the protagonists need to find and free Minotaur from his prison and thus release his people from slavery and turn them against the cabal. Or anything else you can think of. The only limit is your imagination. Now, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join this amazing funky community that I appreciate so much. Make sure you hit the like button, show me you like this video and it gave you some inspiration, and hit the bell so you don't miss my next video. And also make sure you leave a comment down below, just say hi if you have nothing else to say. Thank you so much for the privilege of your time. I truly hope you found some inspiration and learned something new today, and I can't wait to see you all funky people here next time on Funky Monkey MP, the place where you get your dose of history, world building and trivia. Remember, be curious, take inspiration from the past, and never ever stop learning, world building and creating amazing things, whatever those are. Your mind and imagination are awesome, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Until next time, have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful, funky day. Cheers. Is it the same ship though? I think it is. The soul, the essence of the ship is still there, even though the materials were replaced. It's a paradox.